Hey guys, Pals Ramos here, and Dolphins begin training camp July 28th, which is when I should upload this video. So I'm recording it the day before. Well, what happened today was some players reported. They had tier 1 and tier 2 players come in, some big names and some small names, but majority of who is probably more than likely going to make the 53-man roster. And that being said, a lot has happened. So let's get into it. So while I've been gone, just to update you guys on life, just been focusing on school, working on some things with my car, and just living life, not really worrying too much about sports since there hasn't been any. And well, that has all changed in the matter of 2 weeks. So we've been getting sports back. It started with in the U.S. with MLS, then NBA just came back, WNBA as well. Has just started their season, and also MLB, and now coming soon will be the NFL, which I am head over heels. I'm so excited. I cannot wait. I'm so happy to finally be able to turn on sports and just have a good time, And so if you haven't heard the news about it yet, Miami Marlins had a couple players test positive for COVID-19. So, what does that mean for the NFL? It means a lot because MLB and the NFL are doing pretty much the same thing. They're playing in from what's standing right now, empty stadiums, and they're traveling into where to actually play, and that does bring a big concern with the travel and everything. And now the Miami Marlins have had a bunch of players test positive, and even managers and whatnot. So their game got postponed. They were supposed to play tonight, and it didn't happen. They were supposed to play here in Miami, and that didn't happen, obviously. And it's a bit shocking, not gonna lie, but this was expected, and it had to happen eventually at one point. You were expecting any team, who was going to be the first one to have people test positive. And fortunately, it was for Miami Marlins, but fortunately, I'm a Cubs fan, so it's not that upsetting to me. But it is still upsetting because it's the city of Miami and whatnot. But that being said, there's some things that have to go forward. And so I just want to go over something that Roger Goodell published today. So today he had a letter come out that addressed pretty much anything that's happening. So he was saying that this week training camps across the country are starting, and before we know it, the NFL season will be here. This is always the most optimistic time of the year for our fans and all 32 teams in a year that has been extraordinarily difficult for our country and the world. We hope the energy of this moment will provide some much needed optimism. Keeps on talking about COVID-19 and how it turned the world upside down, but he also talks about how they're going to be going about their business with COVID-19, getting tested, and then just regularly. So every step of the way, our focus has been on safety of players, coaches, personnel, fans, and our communities. Our planning has followed the lead of medical experts and public health officials as we've developed our 2020 playbook for the return of football. Safety continues to be our first priority. That commitment will remain paramount to as players return out to the field. Then he goes on about pretty much what they're going to be doing about getting tested every so often, and he pretty much just thanks people for reading that. So all that being said, I don't know if you guys have seen, but Oakley has designed a face mask, and honestly, it's I don't know how to describe it. I mean, it's just like their visors that they made, but they have some slits in it, which I'm kind of confused on how it's gonna help prevent. Maybe put another layer of fabric to cover it or something. I'm not too sure. I'm gonna put a picture of it on one of these sides, and when I find it. There's a lot of concern that has to go on with COVID-19 situation. That's, you know, the we America is like one of the only countries that really hasn't gotten on the wraps, and it's pretty upsetting, to be honest. But enough of all that. Let's talk about Dolphins because I've been babbling on way too much right now. So Miami Dolphins obviously had some players come in today, tier one and tier players. Um, a lot of rookies, a lot of returning players, and man, it was pretty exciting to see all those players walk through the door of the training camp. And so today they just reported. I'm pretty sure they got their playbooks. I mean, pretty sure most of them already had their playbooks, but some people just got their playbooks and pretty much they probably just went over like the protocols and like what's going on. And so the NFL has come out with a new term to like the reserve list. Is called now the reserve / COVID-19 list. And that being said, there are some players that are on the list. So let's start with long snapper Blake Ferguson. He's the rookie we drafted out of LSU. And then undrafted rookie defensive tackle Benito Jones. And cornerback Cordrea Tankersley, who honestly, I'm rooting for that guy because he was pretty good when he was healthy in his like first 2 seasons. And then he got hurt in training camp, I believe, last year, if not the year before. I mean, he had an ACL injury, and he's returning from it. So those players are on the list, and that could be they have COVID-19, or it could be that they've been in contact with someone who has it, and just goes on. Just all precautions necessary. And let's see some other moves that the Dolphins have made. So some other moves that the Dolphins made was this was like the first moves that we made on cutting down the roster was we released wide receiver Ricardo Lewis, and then we waived a bunch of people. We waived quarterback Jake Ruddock, linebacker Trent Harris, and defensive end Avery Moss. And Trent Harris and Avery Moss played about like 600 snaps last season, which is a lot. And Jake Ruddock was pretty much going to be a camp body because, let's be honest, you already know the quarterback battle is going to be between these three guys of Ryan Fitzpatrick, Josh Rosen, and obviously Tua Tagovailoa. So, I mean, it sucks that he got released or / waived. But I'm pretty sure he will find a spot somewhere eventually. And who knows, maybe the Adam Gase picks him up. Jets news, even though I don't want to talk about the Jets, they traded away Jamal Adams, the Preds. And that was huge. They got like 2 first-round picks and another safety out of it and a bunch more. And so I saw this come up, and people are like, oh, you know, the Jets got so much for Jamal Adams, and the Dolphins pretty much got nothing for Minka. And honestly, I think at the time his trade value was not so high, Minka Fitzpatrick. And because he hadn't really done much in the league in his first season, and then in the second season is when he traded him. So we got 2 first-round picks out of him, which is, I think, not bad at all. We just got straight up 2 first-round picks, and you know, one of those picks turned into an offensive lineman for the Miami Dolphins, which I don't think is as bad at all, and it was much needed for the team. So, other news is we picked up some people. Let me see, I have it here. We traded for a Bears tight end. His name is Adam Sheen. We traded a 7th-round conditional pick. So conditional pick meaning it's conditional. Like if he stays on the team by a certain point, then we obviously give the Bears that pick. If he doesn't, then he is released and we get our pick back. So who knows? I wonder if it's just to, you know, bring some competition within the quarterback room because honestly that was probably one of the Dolphins' weakest spots. No shade to Mike Gesicki or Durham Smythe or any of those guys. It's just, let's be honest, I mean, we haven't had a solid tight end room in a while. And some other picks that we have is we picked up cornerback Javarius Davis from Kansas City, who was waived from them. And then we also waived at / non-football injury tight end Michael Roberts. And then obviously on the tweet it shows like how they place these players on the COVID-19 / injury list. So All that being said, training camp begins tomorrow. They're not going to be in pads for like another 3 weeks or so. So a lot of this is just them studying, them getting in shape. If they haven't been yet, which I doubt it because these guys all they do is work out. So I don't know what else they've been doing during the quarantine. But yes, a lot of players reported today, and it's pretty awesome to finally have that glimpse of people are coming back and stuff. That's awesome. Lastly, what I want to go over is preseason. Preseason is not happening. No preseason games whatsoever. It started off as 2 games were getting canceled for every team, and then preseason ultimately got canceled altogether. And it's obviously just out of concern for the players' health and not really wanting to introduce them to any foreign COVID-19 problems. But I do see all the good in that. But also, it's going to suck not really having any football until when the actual season kicks off, which, I mean, ultimately sucks. But, they're looking out for the players and they don't want them to contract it very early on. But like I mentioned earlier about the Miami Marlins situation, they had this outbreak happen, and then next thing you know, games are canceled and whatnot. In football, having a game canceled is a lot more detrimental because that's 1 out of 16 games that you're playing. And then if your whole team has to quarantine, that's 2, maybe 3 games, So there's a lot on the line for the NFL. MLB, they've obviously had a shortened season to just 60 games, which is insane. I don't know how they're going to be able to really manage this, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens throughout just the rest of sports. Unlike the NBA, MLS, and WNBA, those 3 organizations are in a bubble. Like, they are all within the same area. They play at the same place. With the NFL and the MLB, they are traveling to different cities. So the biggest concern is when you're within, you're traveling, where you contract it. And it's going to be one of the biggest problems going throughout the season, believe it or not. And really sucks, but I think that's about it that I'm going to dabble on today about just like Dolphins and NFL and just sports in general. But I will have to feature one more thing, and that is to check out Two Bags Up. It's a podcast that I do with one of my friends that I know from down here in Miami. And we do a podcast every week. And last week, we just introduced our fantasy football podcast. And I think by the time you guys see this, I'm going to be recording the quarterback episode. Last week, we just talked about our fantasy football experiences in the past and just really how, fantasy football is for at least ourselves. And not only that, just what we've experienced in the past, like having an undefeated season, then at the end, you just fizzle out and just really ultimately choke and not even win your league and stuff like that. This upcoming episode, we're going to talk about quarterbacks, but you can check out even more episodes that I've been doing before, and just mainly talking NFL news like Patrick Mahomes, big deal, and Jamal Adams wanting to be traded, Dak's contract negotiations, you name it. We talked about whatever was trending at the moment, and I hope you guys really do check that out. It's a Two Bags Up Sports podcast, and don't be afraid to give them a follow on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, wherever platform you like to listen to your podcast, watch them, it's there. So check it out, all right? And lastly, don't forget to subscribe. Click the like button if you enjoyed this video, and also don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @ByAustinRamos. And that is about it. Lastly, fins up.